Maybe we can move on to Johnny, just talk a little bit about because you play an amazing array of characters, and I'm just looking at them. and maybe you could talk a bit through the theatrical techniques that are used in the production and the challenges that you face as the actor.
Yeah, well, I mean, the joy of mask work is that you can play as many characters as you have masks, and part of the excitement of the piece is that there's so many quick changes of character and mood and scenario. So it's very lively, and there's not time to get bored during the piece because there's always something else coming up which is completely different. So it's very exciting, it's very direct, it's very high energy. I mean, Russ was saying it's not a pantomime, which is not, and it's not pantomimic, but there is a sense of high energy and a real communication with the audience. And we have a section of chorus characters who start the piece. One thing about the masks is that they're quite just let Jasper out. And some of them are quite direct, and it's something about the eyes which is kind of very present and very direct. So one thing we try and do at the very start is ease the audience in with the chorus characters who are a little bit more soft and gentle and a bit more nervous perhaps. And at the very start of the piece, we'll make an effort to come out and actually interact quite directly with the audience, possibly sort of coming out into the space and meeting them, so that when the actual characters proper come out, they're not too intimidating in your face. So I'll pop Jasper on actually, it's been a while. Oh, I can't.
You can't. Keep talking. I'll type. Keep talking.
So in terms of performing it, I mean, it's a great challenge because there's very quick changes, and backstage it's chaos.
It's not chaos.
Well, I love you. He's on stage, Scrooge just standing there watching most of the stuff. And backstage we're just hurling stuff on and off, and then there's lots of puppets and things appearing, and part of the joy is that from the front, hopefully it looks very seamless, and you wonder. I think sometimes we get at the end, it's strange that only 4 performers come out. People think, well, there must be 6 or 7 people behind there, but it's just crazily running around. So yeah, it's very exciting and quite draining, but ideally it's really high energy, and it's really playful as well with the audience, and that we interact, and there's a sense of storytelling with the people in the space.
We kidnapped an usher once.
Yeah.
Theatre Royal Margate, yeah, they insisted on keeping their ice creams to themselves, so that was slightly more anarchic, but the chorus does have that sense of anarchy.
Go on, Jasper.
Oh dear, I've been sitting in that box all year, it's nice to be out. Look at you, look, you look smiling, you're all nicely fed, aren't you, eh? You alright? So, you're going to be assisting us, are you? Helping out and moving people around. It's nice, isn't it? So, very important thing, make sure the audience know where to have a riddle. It's very important, because some of them are quite elderly, so you've got to make sure you point out exactly where they've got to go. We don't want any nasty, sobby accidents, do we? Well, I think I've created the right tone there.
That's the stock in trade, isn't it? We joke.
It's just talking about we in a very pleasant manner. But we have great fun just messing around with these characters and kind of improvising, really.
How did you develop the script effectively? Was it adapted? Was it devised? How did you?
There was our process is that we will devise. We will take a scenario, work around it. I will then write it, and then we come back and rehearse. On Christmas Carol, actually, merely because of the time constraints, it was a question of adapting it and then going straight in. But because I make the masks and the puppets and I write it, it kind of helps you kind of know what will work. And there were, I think there are 21 characters in this show, and well, indeed, yeah. Good Lord. Yeah, there are 21 characters. So if you think it's an hour-and-a-half show. That's quite a lot of running around, but and something like 7 puppets. because I made, but you kind of begin, you have an empathy in the writing, and you can hear the voice as you're making the mask. It's not the, it wasn't the ideal way of doing it, but it seems to have worked out. And we through a fairly, it was a fairly rigorous rehearsal process, but it kind of got there. But the wonderful thing about masks is it's always changing. I suspect that the performance at the end of our sort of 29 shows will not be the same as it is at the beginning. And it will have been out on tour again beforehand. I think we've got 10 or so dates before we come in. So it's always changing. It's a malleable thing, and because of the extremes of the performance. I mean, if you think about The Simpsons, you think of the energy level there. If one performance differs in one way one night, it will affect absolutely everything else in different ways, and it's quite interesting to see how things sort of change.
Does the venue change things? Because we've obviously got a thrust stage, and I know you might play end on or in a cross scenario. Does that change things?
We get sorer necks. It's you probably noticed. I mean, I'd just like to say that Lindsay's mask work was every bit as good as Johnny's. And she resisted the urge to talk about we, which is good. But
never mind.
I'll work on that.
Yeah. When you're looked at by a mask, you probably notice it's like being given a gift. It's when the mask looks at you, it's known as clocking, technically. When the mask looks at you, you feel, oh, I'm the only person in the world. And it's a greater effect. It has a greater effect on you than a normal person looking at you, particularly on the stage. And so you have to be generous as a performer. You have to be able to pick out different parts of the audience. And so in this kind of environment, we are going to be making a big effort to be able to take everybody in. The work is with us, not with the audience. I mean, I would say, it's ideally we will have some fuller houses that will come round, but we will have to work harder. But as ushers, if you can, do people have numbered seats here?
Yes.
Oh right, so we will be selling tickets from middle outwards, and that's no problem. But don't be surprised if we come out into the audience from time to time either.
And the look of the stage, is it a minimalist set? Is it, how do you? Because the thing about Christmas carols, it dots backwards and forwards with lots. I mean, that's quite a tricky theatrical trick to pull off with a small company.
Yes. Well, we're halfway there with the masks because we have lots of different characters. But you see, Monica has the advantage of having seen a video of our show, so she's fairly leading questions going on here. But it is sorry, see behind the scenes there, haven't we? You describe the set, don't you?
Crikey, well, in a sense, it becomes a symbol for all the different places that you see in A Christmas Carol. It's a cityscape in its own right, but it's also separate rooms and very different rooms, an upper class.
There's not a right angle on it. It's all very wibbly-wobbly.
It's very wonky, odd, like it's been cobbled together. There's lots of doors that open. There's a bed section that comes out and moves around the stage and becomes lots of different things. So it's very practical. It's very quirky. It changes a lot.
It's a cross between a puppet set and a big theatre set in a way. I would say it punches above its weight. Because we have to go into quite small venues with it, we've developed this sort of off-kilter look because it actually looks much bigger than it really is. And it works very well. It looks beautiful in black box spaces, in a blacked out theatre, whereas it will actually fit into something not enormously bigger than this. Although what we do have is Mark has what's known as his nest, over at the side, so there is actually quite a big playing space. You get a sense of it actually being bigger than it is. I mean, I suppose if you wanted to describe it to somebody, you need to sort of conjure words, sort of think of Tim Burton, I suppose. What else would you say?
Blackadder's been mentioned before. That's perhaps less appropriate with this.
Just to describe the set, though. What would you say?
Set.
Yeah.
It's
sort of
Heath Robinson,
Tim Burton,
Terry Gilliam.
Yeah, it's that kind of world, which is why the audience loves coming to see it at the end, because it's almost sculptural. It's based around Scrooge's bed in a way, but because the bed twists and turns, there's a truck that comes out and moves around, which, according to the different spaces we're in, we can either take further down stage or not. We probably won't be on this occasion. It will be staying upstage so that people can see as much as possible. It's got a very gothic feel to it. We use smoke at various points, and a sort of rippling. You get a sense of being by the river at other points. So it's. I think it does a lot for what it is.
And you've handily produced a very comprehensive teacher's resource pack for...
Well, that's Beth. You hopefully you will meet Beth at some point, which is my wife and the manager of the company. She's actually preparing to produce our second child at the moment. So she's well, not today, but she's she will be around. She will be around. So it'd be lovely for you to say hello to her.